Now, it certainly looks like Game Week 31 is going to be another popular time for FPL managers to use their wildcards. And if you're one of those managers, I've got a draft for you. All right, boring stuff out of the way first then. We've got the fixtures. Now, I've probably gone over this fixture grid in my last 7 or 8 videos. But obviously, when you're playing your wildcard, really important to know what doubles and blanks we've got coming up, right? Ahead of the official announcement, we've got this fixture grid here from Ben Crellin, which is still based upon predictions. But I think, you know, there's a level of surety now as to where these double game weeks are likely to land. Obviously, we won't know for sure until the official announcement comes out. But I think we've got a pretty good idea now. So, Game Week 32, as we know, is a confirmed double for Crystal Palace and Newcastle. We've got a likely double game week in 33 for 4 teams. Crystal Palace, Man City, Aston Villa and Arsenal are blank for those 4 teams as well. There is also a chance that Forest and Brentford double in 33, but that's unlikely. I would suggest it's more likely that that falls maybe Game Week 36, Game Week 35, but we'll see how that pans out. We spoke about blank Game Week 34. Potentially a double in 35 for Forest and Brentford. Possibly a double in 36 for Crystal Palace, depending on, you know, how that 33-1 falls. Man City again, you know, all of the teams that double, well, have a likely double in 33, you know, that could also fall in Game Week 36. And then we've got Tottenham, Bournemouth, Wolves, West Ham, and who else is in there as well? Obviously in Forest and Brentford, who we spoke about, and yeah, those other 4 teams as well. And any teams that likely double in 36 will blank as well in 37. So what does this mean? Well, it means we don't have the definitive news, but I think we've got, you know, enough, I would say, surety around when doubles will fall to be able to pick players in a wildcard team now. And immediate, like, standout teams where you got that confirmed double in 32. So we definitely want to be looking at Crystal Palace and Newcastle players. You know, Crystal Palace, should that double game week in 33 come off, they have 2 consecutive double game weeks. And then Man City, Villa and Arsenal as well, with likely doubles in 33. So with all that in mind, let's get right into the draft, shall we? So I've gone for David Raya in goal. I think the Arsenal fixtures look good from a defensive perspective. Everton, Brentford, and then that potential double involving Palace and Ipswich. Now, unfortunately, as we all saw, the injury to Gabriel in that game did his hamstring by the looks of it against Fulham, which is obviously unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, what can you do about that Gabriel injury, I suppose? It's just a question of how much does that impact them. But I think Arsenal have so many numbers now in that sort of defence that they have. You know, injuries to their attack might hurt them, but I don't think a Gabriel injury is an absolute disaster for their defence. So I'd still back Arsenal defensively in those games. You can see there on the bench, I've actually gone for Timber. Now, he did get subbed off with, well, what people seem to think was an injury in that Fulham game. But it does... I think it was just cramp and he was taken off as a precaution. You know, I don't think Arteta wanted injuries in the same game to both, you know, Timber and Gabriel. In the case that, you know, if you were in a bit of a better financial position than this team suggests, then you could maybe go for Saliba instead. But I've gone for Timber because he saves you $500,000. And I know, maybe even more than that actually. I know I said in my buy and avoid video, I think Saliba's better and probably worth the money. I've tried to make this team as, well, accommodating for anyone's kind of budget as I can. So starting back 4, we've got Raya, Munoz, who I genuinely think is the best defender in the game right now. You know, he gets returns through 3 different means: goals, assists, and clean sheets. Good fixture in game week. Well, I say good fixture. Brighton's a decent fixture, you know, the kind of derby that Crystal Palace have. And then 2 potential double game weeks, as we know. Guardiola, I'm not all that enthusiastic about Guardiola, don't get me wrong, but I think when I look at all the defenders you can pick that have potential doubles, it's really slim pickings. You know, you can't really pick, I don't think, you can't really pick any of the other Man City defenders because, well, who's going to start? I don't think you can back any of them to start regularly, but Guardiola seems to be the most nailed on, so I went for him. And I also think with the Haaland injury, what we have seen previously with Marmoush being in the team, I think, is Marmoush kind of takes up those attacking positions that Guardiola was doing previously, scoring his goals and getting assists. Well, Guardiola was. That kind of stopped when Marmoush got in the team because obviously he was taking up those positions. I think with Haaland being injured now, Marmoush probably being the first choice number 9 for Man City, that probably frees up Guardiola again to do a bit more attacking. And then I've gone for Dan Burn. I'm not massively enthusiastic about the Newcastle defence, but I think the prospect of Leicester in a double game week makes sense to go for him. You can see there players on my bench as well. I've gone for Flecken. Just going back to the fixtures, I'm looking, well, in my personal team, I'm looking to bench boost probably in 33. And it looks like, you know, there's a chance that Flecken could have a double game week in 33. So you can bench boost a double game week goalkeeper. Or, you know, further down the line, you've got potential double game weeks for Brentford. And I think on those weeks where they double, you could go for, you know, you could go for Flecken over Raya, basically. So that's my justification there. I probably would start Raya most weeks over Flecken, given how Flecken has performed in my team in previous game weeks. I've gone for Rodgers, you know, the prospect of that likely Villa double game week, and he offers a decent bench option. I think with the 3 defenders I've got, I can get away with just not starting Timber if I'm worried about his injury. Although he could maybe come in, I guess, with Dan Burn. But, you know, Leicester's a great fixture for Newcastle. And I've gone for Konsa as well. You know, the prospect of that potential double game week for Villa, I think it makes sense to go for him. And I'm thinking of that bench boost again with that pick. And I think quite a lot of managers will be looking to use their bench boost sort of game week 32, 30, well, 33 as well. And that's what Konsa allows you to do. All right, on to the midfield then. And I've gone for Salah. Now, I still think, even though he doesn't have a double game week, he's probably the best midfielder in the game. You know, he's already broken the FPL point score. Well, we all know the story with Salah, right? I don't need to go into detail. I think even though he doesn't have a double, he is still absolutely worth picking in my mind. Saka, well, he came off the bench, obviously scored for Arsenal in game week 30. I think, you know, you go, I'll go back to the fixtures actually. You look at that game week 33 double if it comes off, and you think, who is the best captain that week, right? I think it's almost clearly Saka is the best captain that week. So with that in mind, I've gone for him. Ismail Assar, you know, the prospect of Crystal Palace having 2 consecutive double game weeks is just, it's too exciting for me. So I'm going to go for him. You could also, I suppose, go for Dean Henderson in goal, but I quite like attacking the upside of attacking assets, if that makes sense. And you look at the numbers that Ismail Assar has put up in, well, recent game weeks, he's actually performing at a really high level. So I think Brighton and 2 consecutive double game weeks is a pretty good set of fixtures. I've gone for Anthony Gordon. I think it's worth taking the risk on him. You know, we had a bit of an update from Eddie Howe saying he's got a lot of bruising around his thigh at the moment, but he's expected to be training within the next few days. So whether or not he starts the Leicester game, I guess, is still up for debate. But I think the strength of this bench, you can just have Rodgers come in if you need to. And then I would imagine that Gordon will be ready to go for that double in 32. You know, Man United, Crystal Palace is a good double game week, and then, you know, the prospect of just having him on your bench for that bench boost in 33 against Villa, I think is pretty good as well. So, yeah, those are the 4 midfielders. Gordon does feel like a bit of a risk, but I think it's one worth taking. And given we got that update, I don't know, it might separate you from game week 30 wildcarders in the sense that you probably have a bit more confidence in picking Anthony Gordon, if that makes sense. All right, and finally, we've got the front 3. I think this kind of picks itself. I've got to be honest. I think this kind of picks itself. So we've got Isak and Mateta. I think these 2 are just the most nailed on players in this team, basically. You know, Isak, probably the best forward in FPL right now. You know, he's, I'd say, arguably been performing this season at a higher level than Haaland has. And he's got Leicester in game week 31 and then Man United in Crystal Palace in a double game week. Mateta, you know, we spoke about Palace, 2 consecutive double game weeks. He might get limited minutes in the game week 30 fixture. Who have they got? They got Southampton, haven't they? The rumour was he's going to get limited minutes, but come game week 31, 32, when you actually need him for this wildcard team, I think his minutes are going to be strong. He's obviously, well, shares penalties with Eze, although I think he's taken all the penalties for Palace in the Premier League so far. Eze hasn't actually had one despite sharing. And then I've gone for Marmoush, and, well, I think Marmoush is going to be first choice for Man City now. I think that Haaland injury kind of, you know, I think he's been playing really well when he has been playing for Man City, and I just don't see a way that he's not nailed on at the moment with Haaland being injured. You know, Pep Roulette has screwed me many times in FPL, and I'm sure that could happen again, but it's pretty clear in my mind that Marmoush is going to get some decent minutes, and it could probably be Kevin De Bruyne, I guess, if he's playing, but who's going to take penalties in Haaland's absence? I think there's a chance it could well be Marmoush. And the prospect of that double game week, Everton and Villa, and the 2 fixtures before that, I think are pretty good as well. I just wanted to finish up by talking about the players that I think are pretty much locked in my draft. And I'd say there's one player here that's kind of on the fringe, and that may be Gordon. Depending on how much budget you have to play around with, you might have to go cheaper to someone like Jacob Murphy, or just go for Rodgers instead, something like that, or Clivert, something like that. I'd say he's probably the one that's kind of on the fringe of the locked-in players, but the rest of them, for me, considering the fixtures they've got, you know, double game weeks, how well they've been playing this season, they're all pretty much locked-in picks. Munoz, you know, I've mentioned him when going through the defence. Returns through 3 different means, pretty much guaranteed. He's going to get goals, he's going to get assists, he's going to keep some clean sheets. Raya, you know, Arsenal, one of the best defences in the league. I think he's worth picking. Salah, he's broken the FPL points record. Saka's back fit. Arsenal got good fixtures, and he's obviously got the double in 33 when he's probably, well, likely has the double in 33 where he is probably the best captain. You're looking at Saar with the potential of 2 double game weeks in a row. Same for Mateta. And I think you've got to have Isak and Marmoush at this point as well. And I think pretty boring the fact that I've got, how many is that? 5 and 4, 9 players that are pretty much locked in this wildcard team. But I just don't see anyone else you can pick. Let me know in the comments if you'd make any changes, of course, to the wildcard team. All right, well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you did, please leave me a like rating on the video. Let me know in the comments if there's, of course, any changes you'd make to this wildcard team. If you haven't already and want to see more content from me, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. Should be just there on your screen. That just leaves me to say thank you very much for watching. We'll wait for the official fixture announcement. I'm on my wildcard in Game Week 31, and this is currently my wildcard draft. You know, as the game week goes on, we'll probably get a bit more news. Well, we should hopefully get some more news about the fixtures. If I make any changes, I'll certainly update you. All right, I'll catch you in my next video.